Hello everyone and welcome to Digital Building Week. My name is Carl Brown, I'm the Head of Content at Assemble Media Group, and I'm chairing this session today, which is all about digital design for high performance buildings. The creation of high performance buildings is obviously something we write about a lot across our titles at Assemble, whether it's around sustainability, durability, energy efficiency of buildings, or whether it's about aesthetics. In some ways, it's arguably never been more important. And in order to achieve this high performance, architects and designers are nowadays harnessing the power of digital design tools and other technologies to achieve this like never before. And this session is going to touch on some of the ways cutting edge technologies are changing the way we envisage design and construct buildings that push the boundaries of performance. Luckily, we have a great panel to talk about all of this, who I'm now going to introduce. We have Harry Bocking, who's a senior structural engineer at Webb Yates. We have Gulnaz Ighani, who's an architect and sustainability director at BDP. And we have Katie Ruddin, who's the consultant at Akerlof. Each of our panelists is going to talk for around 10 minutes or so, and then we should have lots of time for your questions at the end. And please do get involved. We've got you can ask the panel a question. It should be quite straightforward. You can see the panel down the side of your screen. Pop your questions in there, and I'll try and get to as many of them at the end of the presentations. But that's more than enough from me. So I'm now going to go over to Harry for the first presentation. Harry, over to you.
Thanks, Carl. Great, so that's coming through. So as Carl said, my name's Harry Bocking and I'm a structural engineer at Webb Yates Engineers. So just a very quick introduction, there's me. Webb Yates structures, civil, MEP services and sustainability consultancy based in London and Birmingham. We're about 70 people now in the UK, and we work on a wide range of projects across the country and across the world. I kind of wanted to think initially about how you define high performance, and I kind of had to think about what that means for me and what that means for how I work day to day. So I came up with 4 kind of definitions in my way of working. So one would be a special structure, so a high performance structure that has a certain set of requirements that we design to. Another one would be a building designed for specialist end users that needs to be high performance. And then more and more recently, we're always looking at low embodied carbon and things like reuse and adaptation. And perhaps that's a new way of looking at what high performance is, and actually how do we achieve that using digital design to help us. So the first kind of example is a project we did in Dubai for the Dubai Expo 2020. This is the Dubai Sunshade. It's a very complicated structure, something very special, something we don't see every day, and something that digital design was critical in its delivery. So we can see on the left there, you've got the Rhino model, and we use Grasshopper to get that into our analysis packages and eventually even use it to manufacture the structure. So this was a tension structure, and it was to shade the kind of shopping mall at the Dubai Expo. And you can see the shades there on the right being constructed, and they're all kind of panelized and perforated. And we used Grasshopper to get it down so they could be cut in the factory. So it's kind of very, very difficult to do without digital design, and something that we always use to do these kind of complex structures, something that really helps us. Another kind of aspect of that is end users. So this is a laboratory project we're currently working on where the end users require very, very stringent floor vibration criteria. So we've done a lot of work on these types of projects, understanding how floor plates are working and really optimizing that floor plate using our digital tools such as FEA, Grasshopper again, Rhino, integrating everything together so we can achieve a building with specialist performance criteria. Again, very difficult to do if you don't have access to digital design tools. And then going on to low embodied carbon. So this is an example of Southend football stadium, where we've looked at the roof trusses and the long span roof trusses. We've integrated an evolutionary solver in Rhino and Grasshopper, along with GSA analysis software to minimize that truss weight. So you can see pre-optimization on the left. That it's quite a subtle change in here, but you can go online and have a look at the video of this and see it working. And it basically uses an evolutionary solver to optimize within some constraints and take out a lot of steel weight and save a lot of embodied carbon. So again, another way that we can harness digital technology to drive down our embodied carbon on the projects. And then kind of coming from a different angle is saying more and more now we're using materials, using the properties of the materials to their best ability. So looking at stone, concrete timber composites, stone timber composites. So top right there, you've got Anna Freud Centre, where we're using timber in bending and tension and concrete and compression, acting compositely to their best abilities. We're slowly trying to integrate these into our digital tools, because currently we don't have the capacity to do the kind of clever optimization. So we're building the kind of capability to do this. And this is another great way where we can hopefully integrate this into our digital workflows to really drive down embodied carbon and be high performance in that regard. We use some digital tools that we've developed in-house. So this is Cactus, which is our embodied carbon calculator. And what we've done is integrate all of our experience and expertise into a web front-end application. So we can put this in front of clients and architects, and you can see in real time what effects kind of design decisions make on embodied carbon. So ideally, a high performance building in this regard, we'd be looking at an A++ in terms of our rating. And you can see we can put this in the hands of clients so they can make design decisions early using digital technology and get on the right track and make sure that we're making the right decisions at the right time on projects to give us the best possible outcome. A kind of quick case study of how digital design, we can use better digital design for high performance. So we do a lot of projects where we're putting vertical extensions and things like that and adapting existing structures. So this is a project I worked on in Southwark in London, right by Southwark Bridge, the old Financial Times building. We wanted to the client wanted to extend this vertically, and to do that we need a great understanding of the current structure. Traditionally, this is how we do it. So this is a record drawing from 1960s. It's hand drawn, not the easiest to read, not the easiest to get hold of, and actually pretty unreliable. We often find we break structures out thinking we know what's there, and it's completely different to the drawings. The as-built stamp doesn't really count for much in a lot of cases. So this is something we can definitely change, and I think digital tools have a huge role to play. We're seeing more and more things like QR codes and digital passports and stamping of structural elements. We need to do this more often and come up with digital twins so that we can understand exactly how buildings are working and in the future adapt and reuse in a much more efficient way. So, the future might be something like the top left image. We've got a building that's fully instrumented, and we can get every little piece of detail. You think nothing of taking your car to the garage, for example, and they plug it in and you know everything that's wrong with the car, everything that's right with the car. Well, we could do the same thing with buildings. We could monitor them, plug them in, and output something like the middle, which is the real-time data of how the building has behaved over time. And actually, the huge floor loadings that we often design to probably look something more like the top right photo, and we could extract that information and be able to do these kind of vertical extensions, reuse, adapt much more easily and with much less risk. Hopefully that's enough to get the conversation started, and I'll pass over to the next speaker. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me put the full screen. So just a quick introduction about BDP. So my name is Gulnaz, as been introduced. I'm a director of sustainability within architecture. So BDP is a major international multidisciplinary practice. We have architects, designers, engineers, and urbanism within our practice. It's quite a big practice. We have 19 studios. We are present in 12 countries and 6 regions. And we cover many different sectors, from culture and leisure, education, workplace, sport, transport, and everything. And we have some specialism within our practice. We cover different professions. So we have architecture, we have acousticians, we have interior designers, we have a dedicated consultancy in terms of sustainability, full-time, urban planning, landscape, and so on. So we try to have that multidisciplinary aspect of supporting each other within projects. Start giving, I thought it was important to give us the big picture of this conversation. So the way we design today and work significantly has been influenced by the ongoing effects of climate emergency. I took this graph from the latest IPCC report, which is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, that shows that consequences of our current and future decision in both on climate and experience of the next 3 generations. So those color on a people icons represent the annual global surface temperature patterns. And then while those different segments on the future icons symbolize the potential of the future scenarios based on various global warming. Again, this was a very interesting graph for me that I took from the same report that shows the potential of demand side mitigation options for 2050 based over 500 studies. This is a very interesting one, says that how the building industry has the potential to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions by 66% compared to the baseline scenario. This shows that huge responsibility as us as a designer and working with built environments we have. The last bar, the blue bar, shows the projection rates of electricity demand resulting from increasing electrification that can be prevented through mitigation of the demand reduction. So again, this is very interesting, and we need to try to be focused on how we can have that impact in the scenario that we are living. Again, another slide that shows this is a collection of basically global report that every year the World Economic Forum put together. This is from 2022, and put down a list of top 10 global risks by severity over the next 10 years. It's interesting to see the climate action failure, extreme weather, and biodiversity loss are the 3 top. Going a bit down to built environment and within buildings, I thought maybe I put the definition down, and everyone is talking about net zero design approach, what that actually means in the way we design today. The very first approach we'll have is building less. Review the potential of reuse and the adaptive reuse of existing assets. The second bit is reduction of the embodied carbon. Embodied carbon is the energy that it goes to production of the material, extraction, and so on. So there should be a huge focus on that perhaps we forgot for many years. And then operation of energy, reducing the operational part of the energy, how we are using the spaces, the lighting, the air conditioning, and so on. And then after doing this, you get to increase the renewable energy. So if you have on-site renewable, PVs, or anything that can help you to go towards the path of net zero. And if there are certain targets that you need to achieve, and the last thing you need to do is to offset remaining carbon. I have a huge passion about vernacular architecture, and I always think to move forward, sometimes it's important to look backward as well. I believe vernacular architecture had a great capacity of adaptation, respect of the nature environment, and basically those architects without architecture without architects, they had the ability to unify many of aspects of sustainability that today seems to be so difficult to exist. There are so many lessons learned from those architecture that we should not forget. But at the same time, we possess a power of prediction. We have those advanced technology. We can generate an optimized design, evaluate different scenarios, and simulate construction processes. These can lead to improve the design efficiency, cost reduction, and better resource allocation for our construction and our projects. Looking at this diagram and looking at per se of one project of, what are the carbon reduction opportunity they can look like in the RIBA plan of work tells us, this graph tells us, in different stage of design, the biggest opportunities we have is the early stage. So that's carbon and energy reduction potential. It reduced dramatically after stage 3 and 4. So there is a huge demand, and concentration can be focused in stage 0 to 2 or early stage of design. This is another graph that I try to overlap those performance-driven sustainable design approaches that we can have on the opportunity of reduce operational energy of the building as well as embodied carbon. So it is important that we set clear targets at the strategic definition at the early stage, both for operation and our embodied carbon. Again, going down, there are some early analyses that we have to do at stage 1, stage 2, which is site climate, microclimate, potential of on-site renewable, or going by how the embodied carbon can be design efficiency, can be that looking at perhaps building less or building nothing, and looking at challenging the brief of a design. These things are very important to consider early stage. At the same time, I think we need to rethink about what that data-driven design workflow look like. So we might be overwhelmed about so much information we have to embed it with our design. And we are looking at BDP to see what that data-driven multi-objective optimization look like, how we can involve various disciplines around one table and say, what are those inputs can they look like at the early stage of design? At the same time, there is also the challenge of those uncertainty that is are higher at the early stage. So high level of uncertainty of material and energy, we can see that early stage of design from stage 0 to 2, and then move on, we can have more confirm an understanding of, let's say, when we look at the materials, when we have an EPD, which is environmental product declaration, that can give us more information about the product. So at the same time, it's important to run those analyses early on, but we are also very conscious there is so much question and uncertainty about that. So how we can kind of overcome those issue of the uncertainty is about, in my opinion, data collection and data sharing. Data today has become the lifeblood of innovation and decision making, and drive the processes across all the industry and shaping the way we understand and navigate our buildings. So that accurate prediction and data collection and sharing data and setting clear targets is becoming always more important every day in our design. At the same time, sometimes when I speak with our designers, with an architect especially, they tell us that they're quite overwhelmed with the amount of information and data and processes they're going through. So there's so many various things we've been asked to look at. There are new policy, there are new regulation. They are being asked to look at data-driven design. What is circular economy? Sometimes can be quite overwhelming for them to look at all those areas together. I thought of putting this phrase from Fuller, and says, "You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete." I think it's very important that we start looking at new models and new processes and push the boundary of integrated design. To achieve this goal, we have to adopt new and collective and transdisciplinary approach. What that means that we have to unify different disciplines around the climate action framework and promote more collaboration, more education, more knowledge sharing, and empower everyone to make an educated decision. At the same time, we have that challenge around people, and we need that behavior change. I think people are at the heart of the change. That behavior change should happen from top to bottom and from bottom up. And that requires, again, knowledge sharing, collaboration, and education. Many of our designers, I think they feel, especially the experienced one, feel in their comfort zone, feel safe and control of what they've been doing for a long time. It would be really good if we can push ourselves to a fear zone. maybe it's a moment that, some people find excuses, such as time or clients not asking, but it's a phase that is interesting, and I can see some of our colleagues are going through it. The next phase is learning zone. It's people that start dealing with the challenges. There are people to upskill themselves. They start looking at new skills and extend from that comfort zone they have, and that's already it's a huge step ahead of what they need to achieve. I think that the most important one, and you see things that are changing, and I see this in some of our colleagues, is that growth zone. They start looking at new design solution. They are feeling motivated to contribute, and they start setting new goals and looking at the new things. And this is something we need to do really quickly to be able to respond to the emergency of the climate change. Just a little, this is my last slide about AI. Lately, we have been seeing a rise of unbelievable images and video manipulation capabilities, unlike anything that they thought was possible just a few years ago. While this bringing uncertainty, unknown, and potential of failure, I think is also present numerous possibilities. As I mentioned earlier, I think the true innovation occurs outside of our comfort zone, where we can reinvent paradigm and push boundaries. Embracing change is essential. And I think rather than having the fear of losing our jobs against maybe AI, I think we need to push for more creativity and use it as problem-solving capability. I don't think AI will take our job, but the person who used the AI might take and will take our job. So it is important that we enhance all this new technology and the new way of working. This is my slide. I pass to my next colleague.
Thank you, Golnar. So I'm going to try and share my screen. Hopefully this works. So yeah, so actually that was a really great introduction. So today, my name is Katie Reed and I'm from Akerlof, but I'm going to talk to you about a research project that we're part of, which is trying to kind of do some of that collaborative work, which the last speaker just kind of spoke about. So who are Akerlof? So we are a small consultancy that specialise in modern methods of construction, ESG and cost consultancy for the industry. And at the moment, we're working on multiple projects. So we work for both private and public clients across the sector and do a lot of thought leadership work in the innovation space to look at how we can kind of create, hopefully, a better built environment overall. We work across the sectors and there are a lot of learnings, I think, that all the sectors can take from each other. So it's great to have that opportunity to feed back in. So the project I'm going to be talking about today is one that we were commissioned by the Department for Levelling Up Housing Communities to complete along with our project partners. And this was looking at a standardised kit of parts for the industry, specifically for low-rise housing. I guess one of the things just to touch on is what is MMC and modern methods of construction, which is something I'll be kind of talking through within this presentation. So it's a broad term and it generally describes contemporary innovations in construction. So these might be off-site manufacturing techniques, it might be more efficient processing of kind of within a factory or within kind of factory environments. And the outcome is to try and deliver more productive, sustainable and better outcomes overall, better houses, better hospitals, better prisons, whichever sector they're in, so that we actually create more buildings and hopefully more sustainable buildings. There are 7 MMC categories, which you're probably aware of. And so these range from volumetric, which is category 1, all the way to process-led improvements to category 7. Categories 1 to 5 cover off-site and near-site manufacturing, and then 6 to 7 are site-based process improvements. And for the project we're working on, one of the problems that the department set us is that we have, and I'm sure you're all aware, a really big problem in filling the demand for what is now 340,000 homes a year, because we've been under-delivering consistently, and trying to unlock modern methods of construction to drive greater efficiency and productivity overall within the sector for housing. And with this, it's trying to also improve the certainty for the sector and reduce supply chain risk. On the right-hand side are the number of company insolvencies that have happened within construction since 2019. This isn't just within MMC, but I'm sure you've heard of quite a lot of off-site manufacturers that have quite publicly gone under over the last few years. And it's how do we start to create a more resilient sector so that it can start to deliver more housing to meet the industry's ambition overall and start to kind of build up its capacity.
Katie,
sorry.
Can I just jump in there just for a second?
Yeah.
Sorry, while you're in full flow. Are your slides supposed to be moving?
They are, yes. I don't know if they are. I'm guessing they're not.
No, we're still on the front page, and it's also if you could find a way of making them go full screen as well, that would be.
Oh, so they were. So that's really bizarre. 1 second. Let me see if I can do this again. So I'm sorry to everyone who's had to listen to me wrap it on there. Let me try this again. Hopefully that's showing as a full screen.
That's full screen, yep.
Yeah. So I won't bore anyone with kind of some of the stuff that I've spoken through. But yeah, we were just discussing the problem. And then, so here is the slide where I was talking about the number of company insolvencies within construction. You can see it going up and up and up there, which is also reflected within the housing industry. But within modern methods of construction, there's a specific problem where you have a lot of different connection points, geometries and performance levels being provided by the various manufacturers for the different unique configurations that we need for housing across the UK. And although that's great because it means that we're creating homes for those certain areas, it also is meaning that we've got a really inefficient, complex and risky space for these manufacturers to be trying to scale up within. So for us, what we're trying to do within this research project is reduce that risk, and where we can create some form of kind of standardization, specifically looking in the kind of specification space and performance level space, so that then it enables the sector to deliver more homes overall. I just want to check that my slides are now moving. Is that working, Carl?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, perfect, great. And the opportunity of this is that we're going to reduce not only the environment impact and kind of program impacts, but also kind of reducing the waste potentially and disruption of our projects by creating more homes more quickly. So you can go into a site and be off there more productively, but also it should increase safety. It will create better working conditions for people, hopefully an improved quality and performance because there's more consistency in what's being supplied there, and social value overall. And it's reskilling the sector. I think we will always need traditional construction, but potentially this could create new jobs, kind of new opportunities because there's a new emerging space of manufacture happening there. And our brief and project boundaries, so it's a 1-year research project, but it's focusing specifically on panelized systems. So they're the category 2 systems, and category 5, which are the sub-assemblies. And we're developing a proof of concept digital kit of parts for low-rise housing that's looking at detached, semi-detached, terraced and 1 to 3 story flats. And the ambition is this is going to translate all of the policy that the Department for Levelling Up have got in place into practice so that it can support them to deliver better quality, safer and more affordable green homes and improve that supply of new homes so it's more efficient overall. One of the things we are really aware of is there is a lot of existing research out there. I'm sure many of the people listening today are aware of the fantastic research that's gone on within the industry, but sometimes, and something I've definitely found through my career so far, is that it's not necessarily connected. And so a great piece of research might be done, but it might not then talk to another great piece of research that's ongoing. And then we all end up at the same kind of finish line because we haven't kind of enabled each other to move forward. forward. So what we've been trying to do with our project is connecting in with that ongoing research. So we've been connecting with the BSI, with Homes England and some research they're doing in this space, the Royal College of Arts, who've got a great study into the standardisation of affordable housing, and Best, who have got some brilliant work they're doing up in Scotland on transforming timber. But this isn't just the kind of only research we've connected in with. We've also connected in with other research that's gone on before within housing, because we want to make sure we take those learnings and take them forward. And our method wasn't just in kind of putting ourselves into the sources of what people have done before. We wanted to hear about what the industry thought and get their engagement, because from my previous experience in other jobs, engaging stakeholders, you get so much more context behind what kind of is said within reports. So we have engaged over 300 industry experts to look at what are the barriers for the uptake of modern methods of construction. So that's the manufacturers planning. We've had policy makers all feeding into that, what we needed to develop into the digital kit of parts, and what priorities we need to kind of put in place there. And alongside that, we're looking at what products are out there within manufacturers' systems for modern methods of construction and housing, and seeing which of those pass the criteria from the Department for Levelling Up, so then we can start to feed them into the digital kit of parts. So using that approach to kind of help us to refine what will be within there. And what we found is that there's a real issue with interoperability. So systems being able to be used, multiple systems being able to be used on one site. So you don't just have to have one kind of manufacturer developing out that site. You could have multiple, enabling you to get in and off the site quite quickly. Kind of the digital space, which at the moment there are many different digital tools out there between manufacturers and designers, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're talking to each other properly. And also planning, which has got a really big kind of pressure on the system, and trying to get more planning applications done more quickly. So for us, our objectives was looking at digitalization, starting to look at, could we standardize some of the dimensions, standardize some of the components, and standardize performance within the digital kit of parts to enable the industry to move forward. And so, I think this slide is slightly messed up. I might go. So what we've got is a digital kit of parts that is a defined common language for low-rise housing that will have standard performance requirements in there. And with this, there's key data and design information for the parts. There'll be enabling consistent communication and comparison between designers and manufacturers, where at the moment there's definitely a gap, and then also making it open and available for any party to use, so that it can be open access for the industry, hopefully enabling more people to take it up, making it so more people are kind of using it and sharing information in the same consistent way. And with that, with this kind of standard data template, which we're working on at the moment, it will mean for insurance and warranty providers, they will have more foresight of kind of what is out there within the MMC space. For designers, they'll know what they need to be designing to so that it can be manufactured. And for manufacturers, they'll know what performance requirements they need to be kind of making their products too. So if you think of a timber frame house, making sure that it sits and meets certain performance standards, and actually touching on some of the stuff that the other presenters have been speaking about, this could be kind of making sure that it meets future home standards and it meets kind of the ambitions for kind of a net zero and a greener world. And, you know, for clients, they'd be able to put in certain ranges here so that they can push the sector to do better overall. And it will help in, I guess, in one way, in making sure that we're talking about things in the same way, because there's definitely inconsistency in the way we describe things across the sector at the moment. And it will start to create quality benchmarks so that there is a little bit more assurance and certainty from clients and insurance and mortgage providers on the systems, so that hopefully the manufacturers can start to invest more internally. It can also help with that early stage design by allowing the designers to know know what they need to be designing to from really the starting point of a project, rather than it having to kind of come once the manufacturer gets involved. So you're starting to streamline that design process so that we can design more homes and design better homes, and hopefully concentrate on adding more value to projects rather than kind of repeating the same thing over and over. And so our next steps on this are engaging with the industry. So we're actually building out the tool at the moment. So we'll have kind of data templates and testing those solutions with the market. We're still keen to keep engaging and collaborating with as much of the market as possible so that we can test the solutions, make sure they actually work for industry, and test the feasibility. So we'll start to put in values, see how they work. We have a strategic advisory board that's made up of manufacturers as well as kind of key leading thinkers within the industry. And we're getting their input as well to help guide us through the process. And with that, we're hoping that by the end, we're going to have a digital tool as a proof of concept that then can be tested more by the industry, so that we can see how it works in practice. Because I think it's one thing kind of doing it as a project, it's another thing in seeing how people actually use it going forward. But hopefully with this whole project, we'll then be able to start to create more consistency in data and information that is shared between designers, clients, warranty providers and manufacturers for modern methods of construction, and start to enable the sector to realise the true benefits that it can offer. So I think that's everything from me. And sorry about the slides not sharing before.
Thank you very much, Katie. And if all the panelists could turn their cameras back on now, that would be great. Thank you. Well, thanks to all our panelists. There's lots and lots of good stuff there from Harry's examples of how to achieve good design outcomes and drive down embodied carbon, to Golnaz, who I quite like Golnaz's stuff there about the need to build a new model and get out the comfort zone. And Katie there talking about the kit of parts approach and all that engagement and collaboration that is happening with the government and industry. So thank you very much. I'm now going to move to the Q&A, and we've got a few questions through. So I think what I'll do, I'll go straight to the viewers' questions. And I think I'll take this one first. So this is for the panel. This is for the whole panel. And it says, high performance buildings can have multiple definitions, i.e. lower embodied carbon, more energy efficiency, better thermal retention, etc. How do you balance or prioritize all of these different factors, and how can digital tools aid you in making this decision? So I don't know who wants to jump into that one.
Happy to go first. It's a great... Can you hear me? Yeah, perfect. So I think that's a great question. And I would say we are trying to get there. So one of my slides was showing that, yes, when we talk with designers, sometimes they feel overwhelmed about the amount of information they need to gather or amount of simulation we need to do. But how the digital design and integrated design can help us, I think what we are doing at the moment is the multi-objective optimization tools that put together various requirements, the thermal modeling, the embodied carbon, and help us to make that decision once you fix the boundaries. But at the same time, that sitting together, that multidisciplinary approach is very important. So we can't make decision singularly anymore. We need to put the expertise on the same table every time we make that decision. I think the digital tools are great and they're helping us at the same time. But as I was showing in one of the last presentation, it's that mindset and that people understand what that design look like, and going and pushing the boundaries and looking at new aesthetics, a new way of looking at is more important than digital, because the digital tools are actually available today. But how we use that, how we bring the client on board to take that final decision is the most challenging bit that I can see. But there are so many great tools available. We can see some practices that are bringing on their own tools. There are some other industry that are creating one. But the challenging here is how we use those tools to make the final decision and how we put people together. But yes, I do understand there are a lot to go through, and there are so many questions we need to answer at the same time. And that upskilling of ourselves. I have a background in architecture, but I do think we need to upskill ourselves and go a bit beyond our boundary of what we historically or traditionally used to know. We need to know a little bit more.
I think that's really interesting, Golnaz, and the issue of skills is going to be one of my questions in a bit, actually. So we definitely want to return to that. But Katie or Harry, do you have anything on this idea about prioritizing different aspects of a building, basically?
Yeah, I was actually going to say, I think, and it's kind of echoing what Golnaz has said, I think part of it is empowering clients so they know the power of those tools and what it can mean, because if we are going to create a better world tomorrow, we need to empower clients to know what are the tools available, how could designers that they are using use those tools to help them to create better buildings. I think there's a definite education piece that needs to happen there. One of the things we found with our engagement over the last few months is there, you know, when you speak to so many people, everyone has different opinions on what that performance needs to look like. But for us, it's almost kind of creating a baseline so that everybody knows what that baseline is, and then we can work off that to create something better going forward, which I think sometimes what that baseline is still a bit unclear across certain sectors. So yeah, I guess it's within our power to start to help people to know what that is.
Harry, do you have anything to?
Yes, I think it's a great question. And I think it's a problem we come across a lot. And I think I touched on slightly the composite materials and using materials to their kind of optimum. And that kind of covers multifaceted. So things like using a hybrid concrete timber structure, for example, you can get the concrete down to the bare minimum thickness. What you're still getting from that is thermal mass, which drives down your MEP requirements and your air volumes in your building. And then optimizing that, if we can get digital optimization of that, get it as thin as possible, bring your total building height down, reduce the amount of facade you're putting in. Again, you're just working with the facade engineer to then get the embodied carbon of the facade down. So it means everyone's working together. And if we can reach that multi-level, multi-objective optimization that Golnaz is talking about, that's the kind of holy grail, where we'd have all that information in one place and we can run, you know, all the solvers that we've got access to and get that perfect solution. And it will be a trade-off between everyone. But I think we're kind of getting to the point where we're starting to look at it probably quite slowly and separately as a design team, I would say, at this point. But we're not far off being able to do that. And maybe, you know, we've got Golnaz touched on AI, and perhaps that's something we can look at to integrate how we're working and reach those optimal solutions where that we find that perfect trade-off in performance.
Okay, thanks, Harry. Let's go to another question now, and it kind of touches on some of the stuff we were just talking about. But Tom Rosen from ISG, he's a project director at ISG. He says, with the drive for standardization, he is seeing more and more consultants produce their own systems or their own bits of software. It feels like this is diluting the ability for actual change. Wouldn't it be better to have one standardized approach to digital and MMC within the industry, a standard that is produced by the industry for the industry? It sounds like a political speech there, doesn't it? But it's, yes, one standardized approach to digital and MMC produced by the industry. Is that feasible, desirable? You know, what do we think?
So I think, yeah, I would So one of the things we are finding, I think, especially with the rise in platforms and standardization, is there are many people claiming that theirs is a standard or theirs is a platform, and many platforms being produced, lots of different kits of parts, which I think is great. It's great that people are being really passionate about it, but it's not necessarily going to help if we're all then creating different like ways of doing things. So one of the, I guess, tasks for ourselves as DLUC was how it worked with the DLUC project was how can we actually create something for industry. So we're trying to keep it really simple to begin with, start to standardize the elements that actually add value. And then hopefully if we can get people to start to use those, even if it is just the same performance levels, then we can move on from there, because it's trying to get consistency and clarity into the sector, even if it's just a small part. You can see on some government clients, they have been able to do it. So if you look at the Ministry of Justice, they've got some really good areas where they've been able to standardise. And the DfE have done it with some of their schools as well. But I think within housing, when you have a really fragmented sector, I think it's kind of starting to just raise the bar so we're all on the same kind of playing field, and then we can work from there. But yeah, I agree. It doesn't make sense to have. So I think you need to have standardization of certain aspects, but then also allow for kind of innovation at the same time. And it's trying to find that sweet spot, which is a challenge and one that we're working on.
To what extent do you think that desire for sort of standardization is there in the housing world? Is it,
I think there is desire for standardization in some ways, but I think also lots of, I would say, clients and designers, and we all like a red pen and we like to make it feel ours. And for manufacturers, that does make it quite tricky because they're trying to create efficiency through their factory, and obviously they want to fill their factory. So sometimes they'll say yes, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the most efficient way of doing it. And it's trying to find a balance so that we can create the vernacular that we need across the country, whilst allowing them to have efficiencies. And there will always be a place for bespoke, because we do need to create homes, and it's not creating cars which are context-less. So we've got context that we need to be putting the homes in. The buildings.
Okay. Golnaz, maybe do you have a thought about this, the idea of a standard for digital on MMC?
Not specifically of MMC, but thinking about the standard, I do agree with the principle. But generally speaking, the standards, the policies and regulations are slow. So I do welcome every initiative to bring that innovation in, to start testing. And then bringing that together, one standard is the aim to achieve. The problem with net zero specifically, which MMC is part of, moving forward, this sustainable approach within the design, is that generally in terms of climate change, we don't have enough time. We can't really wait as an industry to wait for one standard to happen. So we need to do our testing. We need to start looking at that. One great example of the industry getting together and come up with guidance is not in MMC, but generally speaking is LETI, which is a London Energy Transformation Initiative. So hundreds of volunteers they put together and said, we want to make a change with our industry. And they started creating those standards. They are creating not really a standard we don't still have in net zero, but guidances. And that's a lot of volunteers said, we need to move forward and start doing this. So this is an example of why not having those initiatives, but the aim should be having, yes, one standard that everyone follows. But unfortunately, for the scenario we are living, is just, I think it's so slow. You can't really wait for that happen as quick as possible. That's why I would always welcome all the different initiatives happening. And hopefully we will get that. Also with the net zero, we are just getting to UK net zero standards. That is not ready yet, but we are getting there. And most of people working on that standards are people that started LETI, which is a London Energy Transformation Initiative. So yes, that would be my point of view.
Harry, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, sure. I think ideally we'd have everything standard and it would all be the same, and it'd be and that would be fantastic, especially when we're talking about things like, as Golnaz is saying, getting to net zero. It should be about working together and reaching that goal together. I'm trying to think of an example at the minute where I think we're kind of at a crossroads where we could get something amazing that's really collaborative and standard across the industry, or completely the other way is the reuse of steel in buildings, the reuse of structural steel. So we're seeing a lot of databases and stockpile kind of software that integrates with Revit and things like that being generated. But it's being generated, and it's all open source, which is great. So you can go on these websites, download it. But there's about 5 different ones. So you can go onto 5 different people's websites and get 5 different stocks of steel, and that does seem crazy. We should have one platform that everyone uses, and that would make it way more seamless and way more effective. But then I guess in reality, I'm not sure how that gets implemented and who has the intellectual rights properties and et cetera, and I think that's kind of a big challenge to overcome, really. And I guess it takes people like industry leaders and the government, I guess, to start to step in and standardize that and make it enshrine it in law. You must do this, and if you do this, we'll be heading to net zero together and not fighting each other. But it's difficult. I think it's difficult. And I think it's also difficult because we work in a creative industry. So there's lots of people doing lots of fantastic things, and they're all good in their own way and all bad in others. So it's a very challenging problem.
Okay, thanks, Harry. That was really interesting thoughts there. I just wondered whether we could bring it back to the skills issue just briefly. Because I was wondering how big a barrier a kind of lack of skills are in when it comes to digital design. I mean, for instance, the interoperability I can never say that word, has cropped up a few times. And, is it the case that we have to improve data literacy, for instance, so we can make innovations more broadly available? So I just wonder whether there's a couple of things there, the skills issue more broadly when it comes to digital design for high performance buildings, and whether there's something about understanding data that we need to kind of improve. I don't know who wants to come in on that one. Golnaz, maybe?
Yeah, happy to start. The challenge I see are 2. One is sharing data. So we see usually a big performance gap in building of what you simulate and what the reality are, especially in the operational part of energy. The first one is very much related around regulation and how we simulate, let's say, energy use of the building, which is one of them is Part L, which is quite a old way of simulating things and comparing to a notional building, which we saw that creates a performance gap between what the reality is and what the simulation look like. And now the industry is moving on and suggesting new way of doing this, which is improving drastically. But at the same time, we need to have more data that's been shared from the industry to feed back in and understand what that reality of things look like. So something that Harry mentioned, it was that we are in a creative industry and everyone is competing and creating their own way of doing things in an innovation, moving forward innovation. But at the same time, we really need to put together our effort and start sharing more data about what's the reality of things happening. This part of the operational. The other side of, if I look at the embodied carbon, we can predict and calculate the embodied carbon of building when we have more accurate data. We are trying that, going towards that cultural shift of, when we speak about manufacturing, we are trying to our architects and our designers go and ask for EPD, which is the Environmental Product Declaration, which tells you, is the number tells you what the process of the production of that specific product look like, and gives you a number that you can then put in your calculations. But the challenge is many of these things are new for us. The embodied carbon is really new, and we are just starting doing this calculation over the last few years. So more data we have, more availability of understanding that digital results are, and then gets more accurate numbers, I guess, and be more transparent, share more.
So it's more about
the answer.
At this stage, it's more about just having more data, getting more data in there, sharing more data. Not so much.
Yeah, for me, it's
skills side of things.
The skill set, it depends. I can see a lot of younger generation now, they have the skill set. So the knowledge sharing and skilling up everyone is important, as I said. But the way I see it at the moment, of for instance, at BDP, we have a full sustainability team, and very quickly our younger generation are learning how to do those simulations. That is not a big issue that kind of I see at the moment, but it's more of a what that data look like and accuracy of those numbers. But I guess in reality, the two things, they go in parallel. But I'm more worried about the data side, right, and upskilling,
Yes.
because that's somehow it is happening. It is happening quite rapidly.
Yeah. Harry, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was going to say, in terms of skills, I was going to say my experience of younger engineers coming into our practice is that they are highly skilled, and they might not have familiarity with the particular software we're using, but they're not scared of it at all. You know, you put it in front of them and they pick it up so quickly, and they're just not scared to get stuck in and try it. Like we have a computational development team, as I'm sure most companies do, and I'm pretty sure that I'm the oldest person there. You know, most of the engineers, in fact, everyone's probably under 30, and it's full of graduates, and they're all doing it, and they're all producing this stuff. I think the thing is then to put trust in those people. You know, give them the opportunity to do that, and they do it, and you can help them with your experience. But yeah, I don't see a skill shortage really. I see it's going to accelerate.
Yeah. Okay. Is Katie, your camera's off? Are you?
Oh, my camera should be on, but I don't know if it's come back.
Yes, there you are. Oh.
So I guess my thought on this, obviously we've got the designers, who I think there is a lot of technical ability within the digital space. But one of the things we've found through kind of the research we've done is that actually when you move towards, I guess, traditional building or manufacturing, it's how do we upskill that sector? And so with the kit of parts build, we've had to look at how can we create something that designers will be able to work with that's really quick and efficient and works with their systems, but also then could be as simple as an Excel spreadsheet that somebody within a factory could input into, but would get the same information and data, so back to that consistency of data that Golnaz was talking about earlier. Because I think, Harry's right, there's so many people coming through, I guess, within graduate side that have so much skill and expertise, but it's then trying to catch up what is sometimes quite a dinosaur industry, so that we kind of can bring everybody along on that journey, so that we don't leave people behind and create systems that are then so complex that they don't fit with some of the other models that are out there.
Okay. We've got just a few minutes left. I'll try and just get in some questions quite quickly. So there's a question that's come in that's for Katie, which would try and answer this one quite quickly if you can. It says, when we discuss the new stock being more efficient, how does this research look to leverage technological approaches to improve fabric efficiency?
So at the moment, what we're looking at is what is out there and how are they performing right now, so that we can then set that baseline. But then I think what the ambition is that clients, say affordable housing providers, where they need to have more efficient homes, could set higher levels, and it can start to uplift so that across the board they create better homes. But we are plugging into other research that's going on. So Homes England have the future home standard that they're looking at, and there's an ambition that we would kind of share information with them, and we are doing that so that we don't create something that will then be superseded immediately once it's launched.
Okay, we've got about 3 minutes left. I just thought we would just wrap up by, if we could go to each of you, and I just wonder whether you could tell us just one thing. If you could pick one thing that could be a game changer in driving forward the design of high performance buildings, what would it be? So you're allowed one thing each. And who shall we go to first? Maybe Harry first, if it's all right. Sorry to pick on you, Harry.
No, it's fine. I just thought of something. It's kind of on the back of the discussion we just had on this kind of skill shortage. I think one thing that could be a game changer is actually sharing those skills between practices. So the projects that we've done, the projects that I've been involved in that have been really successful, was where the design team has agreed the digital strategy at the beginning. So going back to the word that I probably won't be able to say, interoperability. if everyone's on the same hymn sheet from day one, you can really leverage the digital tools that we're all developing independently and then work together. So I think getting the digital strategy decided early in the project, if it's and that will really lead to a great successful project and a high performance building, kind of all the ways we've spoken about today.
Okay, thanks, Harry. Katie, do you want to go next?
So I was going to say clear and consistent information, but I think also I think what Harry said there was spot on, so that would be great.
Yeah, and Golnaz. It's always hard going last in these things. But
Yeah, no, I would say it's fine. I do agree with both of them, and I would add collaboration and knowledge sharing. Again, I do believe we have enough information, we have tools, but that collaboration and knowledge sharing within our practices and with wider practices and sharing and collaborating more would be the response. So at the heart of this change, if you want to make this change, are the people. So upskill them and start collaborating more.
Okay, all right. So some key themes coming through there, I think, around sharing of knowledge and data and collaboration. That's all we've got time for, unfortunately. I'd like to thank our panelists. Digital Building Week continues tomorrow and Thursday. We've got it's AI Day on Digital Building Week tomorrow. We've got 2 sessions on AI, and then on Thursday it's all about digital support and building safety. But that's all for now. So thank you once again to Golnaz, Harry, and Katie, and goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye.